Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for watching this short video. This video is called How to Make the Most of the College Fair. My name is Dr. Janet Robinson, and I am the Interim Dean of Counseling here at SMC, and I'm joined by my amazing colleague.
I'm Vicki Rothman. I'm the faculty leader at the Career Services Center, and we're so excited to help you all prepare for the college fair.
Yes, everyone. The annual college fair at SMC is coming up soon. It's actually on October the 15th. It's going to be a virtual fair this year, which is our first, so we're really excited about that. But we wanted to put together this very short video just to give you some tips on things that you can do before the college fair, during the college fair, and after the fair to make the most of the experience. Okay, so let's dive right in. Oh, well, let me say this. Vicki and I are kind of doing this spontaneously, and so we're going to have fun with it. You might want to grab a piece of paper and a pen if you don't have one already, and just be flexible with us. We're going to throw out some good tips for you that you might want to jot them down. And if we make any mistakes, we might just say, oops, and keep going. So hopefully you're okay with that and you'll just flow with us. Okay?
Thanks, guys.
Yes. All
Away
right.
we go.
Away we go, and I'm so excited. So things that you can do before the college fair, everyone. First of all, register for the virtual SMC College Fair. The way you're going to do that is by going to www.smc.edu/collegefair. Now, the way we're doing the college fair is we're breaking up the schools alphabetically according to their university or college name. There are two different events technically for the fair. There are schools that begin with the letters A through L, and then there are schools that begin with the letters M through Z. Students, you're going to have to register for both of those events. So when you go to smc.edu/college fair, make sure that you register for the schools that begin A through L, and you also register for the schools that begin M through Z, okay?
So Janet, how many schools do you think is realistic for them to register for that they could get through in the time of the fair?
Good question, Vicki. And actually, they don't even have to make that decision, because once you register students for both of those events, when you go into that virtual platform, you'll be able to walk around and see all of the virtual booths for all the students schools that fall within that particular event.
Yay!
Yay. So we make it really easy for you. And students, once you see it, I've seen it already, you haven't seen it yet, very cool. Very cool to see these virtual booths for the different schools. And they've got lots of great information that'll be available to you. You can start registering students as early as October 1st. The fair is not until October 15th, but we're going to open up the registration link for you starting October 1st. So anytime between October 1st and the 15th, please make sure that you register. You could even register on the day of the event, at the time of the event, or 10 minutes before, or even after it started. It's never too late. And the event's going to go from 10:30 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. So after you've registered students, the next thing you want to do is start doing your homework. Do some research on the schools of interest. When you register for the events, you'll be able to see the different schools that have already RSVP'd so far. That'll be a great place for you to start saying, oh, USC is going to be here? Great. UCLA is going to be here? Fantastic. What are some of these other schools? Let me check them out. It's a good idea to try to do some research on schools of interest before the fair so that you can also plan some questions in advance. Make sure you've done your own preliminary homework about the school, so then that's less questions you have to ask, but then you might want to ask some clarifying questions based on what you've seen during your preliminary research. And then the last tip we have for you is kind of develop a game plan or strategy for the day of the fair. Maybe you'll say to yourself, I'm definitely going to have 3 different categories of schools I want to try to talk to that day. Maybe some of the bigger schools, big name schools, very popular schools, but then maybe also talk to some of the schools that maybe I haven't heard of before. Let me check out their virtual booth and go inside and talk to the representative. It might be a school I've never heard of before, but it still might be a very good fit for me based on things I'm looking for in a transfer institution. So.
And the last thing I want to add for this screen, and then we'll go to the next slide, is don't think that the only schools you should look at are things that are popular and that you've heard of. We really want to encourage you to look at some of the smaller schools, especially some of the smaller privates. One of the falsehoods is that people will say, I can never afford a private school because it'll cost too much money. But a lot of private schools actually have endowments and money that might make your financial aid package a lot better for there than actually at one of our Cal States or UCs. So we really want you to look around and look at different schools, because you might be pleasantly surprised by some of the small or even large private schools.
That is such a good point, Vicki. So yes, that's part of doing your research, kind of looking into thinking about those things and other things to keep in mind when you're researching schools, or what's important to you students. How big is the school? What's the size? What's the location? Is it here in the United States? Is it an international transfer school? Are they on the quarter or the semester system? Those are things that you also want to consider when you're thinking about potential transfer schools. Okay, moving on to the next slide.
Moving on. All right. So one of the things that we do in the Career Services Centers, we help students prepare for interviews. And I want you to think of this, even though you're not being interviewed for the college, but I want you to think of this as something that you're doing on a professional level. So I want you to make sure to dress appropriately. That means, even though Janet and I have our SMC, proud to be SMC because we're SMC, that day, try and wear, if you're ladies, a blouse, a top, something that's just very kind of nice and pretty, and men, collared polo, if you have long sleeve shirt, whatever it is, so that you look like you're a professional. You want the colleges to know that you've come to do business with them. So even though you're not interviewing with them, that they're a company, they still are part of your career. College, being in college, is part of the whole career. This just happens to be the early part. Later part is actual employment. We want you to visit multiple booths, because that's how you get to practice some of the questions that you want to ask. So let's just pretend that ever since you've been a little kid, you have just loved the idea of your family went to Loyola Marymount University, or your family went to USC, and that is your number one choice. We want you to go to some other booths and practice the questions that you have first, before you go to the booths that really might be the most meaningful. And this is what you would do in a job too. If you know there's a company you'd really want to work for, you wouldn't want your very first interview to be with them. You know you'll make mistakes, because interviewing is all about practicing. So when you're going to the booths, you're practicing questions that you want to ask, and sort of a little bit about yourself. I mean, depending on how many people are in the booth, let's just say Janet's representing, well, if let's say it's SMC, she might say, well, Vicki, how did you become interested in SMC? What is it about our school? You don't want to be sitting there going, I don't know. So this is why we wanted to give this in advance, so you could start thinking about things. And then in the old-fashioned manner, we want everyone to have a handy-dandy notebook or somewhere to take notes. And you can even say to the college rep, you know, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to be taking some notes as I ask you questions. And something that often can get asked in an interview is, you could say to the college rep, is there something I should have asked you about your school that I didn't, that is something I really need to know?
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't really know what to ask. So when you ask it back at them, they could be like, oh, well, by the way, yes. And then you can say, oh, by the way, when the colleges are registering for their booths, they're supposed to have how you can contact them in the booth. But if they don't, you can say, would it be okay if I keep in touch with you? Are you the appropriate person to stay in touch with? And if so, would you mind giving me your email address if it's not already stated in the booth? So those are things to kind of take care of during the college fair. Did I leave anything out?
No, great stuff.
Okay,
Excellent
onward.
points. And then finally, students, things that you can do after the fair. Well, as Vicki just recommended, if you have a notebook and you're kind of keeping notes, after the fair is over, kind of taking some time to review the information that you've collected. Saying, wow, I learned so much today. I learned something about this school that makes it even more of a transfer school consideration for me, or I learned something about this other school that makes them not a high priority for me anymore. So take some time to think through everything that you've collected and learned that day. And then if you continue to have some additional questions, follow up if it's necessary, using either the contact information that you received from the representative, or maybe contacting the school's undergraduate admissions office. And then if you had a really good exchange with a representative in one of the virtual booths, it might be appropriate to send a thank you note to him or her, just to thank them for the information they shared with you that day. And then finally, if you hadn't already had a chance to take a virtual tour of the different campuses that you're interested in before the fair, it might be appropriate to do a virtual tour after the fair. So again, everyone, these are just some tips that we thought we'd pass along to you so that you can make the most of the SMC Virtual College Fair experience on October the 15th. Again, that's going to be on a Thursday. It's in a virtual environment, and it's going to start at 10:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. in the afternoon. We already have over close to 200 schools that have already registered to attend the virtual fair, SMC students. So they're coming to talk to you. They've heard great things about our SMC students, and this is a great opportunity for you to shop around for a transfer school without ever leaving the comfort of your home. So thanks everybody so much for your time and attention today. Thank you to my colleague, Vicki Rothman, for her assistance, and have fun at the fair, everybody. Proud to be
Can't wait to
SMC.
see you. Proud to be SMC. We can't wait to see you all in person again.